Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Jonah and the Pod. Today, we have a very special guest, someone that I've gotten really close to recently. I say recently, past 2 years. Someone that I love passionately, and honestly, like a blessing from God in my life. Someone that has just shown a lot of, what's the word? Like gracious rebuke, but also like loving wisdom with his words. That's the best way I think I could explain it. Probably the worst way I could explain it, but also the best way. So everyone, please welcome my good friend Yusuf.
Hello, everyone.
So this is going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting and crazy episode. I think unexpected episode from for a lot of people. Even for myself, when we were discussing, I was just like, man, this is, yeah. So I guess I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yep.
Just who you are, what you do, life, whatever else it is.
Yep. Thanks, Jonah. I actually wasn't expecting to come on this podcast. I avoided like the plague for so long, but just seeing Mark come on here last week and hearing him speak and seeing how God has worked in his life has been such an incredible testimony to his goodness. And I thought, hey, part of the Glory Awaits movement. So
you don't have your shirt there.
Yeah, I don't have a shirt, but yeah.
One day.
I'm waiting on someone get it done. Yeah. But yeah, a bit about myself. Go same church as Jonah, part of the AV team as well. Also similar to Jonah, work in IT, which most of our job is just going around restarting computers and just turning off and turning back on. I turned 27 last month, so it's been an interesting year, and been reflecting a lot on like what God has done in my life throughout all these years, and I can't praise him enough for all the amazing things he's done. But yeah, that's a bit about myself at the moment.
Yusuf and I, we work like same place pretty much. We're not the same company, but like it's 10 minutes away from me, 10-minute walk from me. So we've been having lunch together maybe like every week, but not really every week. Honestly, the biggest blessing. We just sit, we talk, we had some pretty good conversations. It's honestly been a blessing, and I think I'm hoping that similar to Mark, seeing the growth in your life, I think people will be like, what's the word? Encouraged by it. Yeah. And I think in all of our lives, like there's a few of us guys that have just been like, we have no idea what's been going on, but we have just like a God to thank and a God to know and love. So yeah. I guess I'll get you to start us off. Maybe you want to tell us
about myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was born in Iraq, one of the Iraqi boys. I would say very early on in my life, like my earliest memory is just us and my grandfather's house with my mom like just holding me, and like I'm just hearing rockets falling around all around us. But I say this, but like that was one of my most special memories, because I just felt like my mom was like just holding me and I wasn't scared of anything. So growing in Iraq was an interesting thing. It's some of you have heard, some of you guys have heard Bashar's story, and there's a lot of similarities to it as well. I would say though those years were very challenging, especially because my earliest memories, or I guess my eyes opened up to evil very early on. It wasn't like seeing the good, it was seeing war, seeing death, seeing just the human condition, human sin, and its effect on people, and the bitterness and the hatred. So that was very early on in my life, and that really shaped, I guess, my perspective, and where when I was older, like it kind of became very cynical of things, cynical of life, even struggled with like suffering and accepting that God can actually let all of these things happen. But in time, he worked at that, he healed it. But yeah, I guess that was Iraq. During 2000 so the war happened in 2003. I was 6 at the time. And then in 2005, the Saddam Hussein, which was the president, they executed him, and a lot of the militias started rising, and like a lot of persecution started happening. A lot of Christians were getting targeted, kidnappings, all these things.
And your family was Christian?
Yeah. So yeah. So you'd always hear like people getting kidnapped, people getting shot. And in 2005, it was really bad for the Christians as well, because the Pope at the time had spoken out about terrorism and about the Muslims and everything. And one thing that the West doesn't understand, or when you speak about like, let's say, Islam or the way they're doing things, and they pay it back in dividends, especially to the people who have nothing to do with it. So that really upped the persecution to Christians. So a lot of them, and it wasn't just Christians, it was a mess. Everyone was killing everyone was kidnapping everyone. But like, that's just to give you a taste of that aspect. But at the same time, we're still a kid, like still play games, even though they were a bit different than what you guys would think are normal. It was still like, he still had a childhood, but it was one that was, I guess, it was a weird one. But I'm thankful for those years. But I would say it didn't come freely. Like, it came at a cost, and I experienced that cost much later in my life. Fast forward a few years, because the persecution was really high, we decided to go to Syria as refugees. So my dad sends me and my mom and my grandma to go there first, just because we had some family that were there already, and he stays back to sell his house. And so we're there, we're waiting for him, and it was, I guess, something happened to the family that nobody expected. So on the way to Syria, after my dad had sold the house, he was stopped by Al-Qaeda. And so it wasn't just him, it was him and my uncle. And both of them were kidnapped. So we'd always go around hearing about these stories, but one day, all of a sudden, hey, it happened to us. And my dad can tell you his story, and he gets it's emotional. Yeah, he gets emotional, but he tells you God is the one who brought him out of it. And that was the first time we experienced the power of prayer. And because we all met, it was 20-30 people in our house just praying every single day for him to come back. And by the grace of God, God had brought him back to us. And man, my dad is a fighter. I would say the Middle Eastern dads, especially with the things they've gone through, with the resources they had, they're a fighter. He's I love him dearly and everything he's done in my life. And despite what he had gone through, despite of all these difficulties, he still continued to try and keep the family together, try and provide with us. He was struggling with his own demons as well at the time, especially coming out of that. Of course. But I would say God's hand was over us, even though it was very difficult, especially in Syria. Syria was a special place. It was the first time we had safety outside of Iraq, where you could go out. If you're a woman, you don't have to wear a hijab. So there was freedom. My mom really loved it at the time, and I loved it as well.
How old were you at this time?
So I was 9.
Okay.
I was 9. Yeah, was 9 at the time, and Syria wasn't interesting. It was fun. It was one where like all of the Iraqis were there. It's okay.
Sorry, maybe we just cut that part
Yeah,
out.
I'll cut that part. We'll start again. You asked me, hey, how was Syria? Say that again.
Did I say that?
Yeah. So how old were you when you were in Syria?
Yeah. So how old were you when you were in Syria?
So when we were in Syria, I was 9. And then we stayed there for about 4 years. And in those 4 years, life, I guess, for me became some of the best 4 years of my life and some of the most difficult years of my life as well. Just because you're stuck in a place where it's not really your country, nor is it nobody likes you as well. Because like, hey, you came here, you're taking our resources and all these things. So people don't really understand the, humanitarian side of it.
Did you have people to stay with, or you just like pretty much on the road? Or
No, we weren't like that. Back at the time, a lot of the Iraqis were, despite what they had gone through, still richer than a lot of the Syrians. So when you come in with your currency and the money, because you got to remember, we had the savings, but then again, that savings money went to my dad's kidnapping. So, but you still could live. So we had a place that we lived in, but we relied heavily on my uncle who was in Australia to send us money. And that money was used to, I guess, like get the foods and everything. So I would say we're also fairly poor there, and we're just waiting on hope, like waiting on salvation. It's like, God, when are we gonna leave this place? When are we gonna, flee the dangers? When are we gonna just have a place where we can stand firm and secure? And that's a lot of what drives, I guess, people to leave their country. And my parents as well, they tell me that, and I believe it as well, that the reason they left is also for me to like have a future, for them to have a future. So that was a bit about Syria as well. I would say their school was very tough. I was bullied quite a bit, and the bullying here compared to the bullying of the Middle Eastern kids is a bit different. People don't realize how evil and twisted young kids can be.
I'll cut you off right now. But
yeah.
So you were in Iraq. I can't remember exactly what you said, but did you go straight to Syria?
Yeah.
So how was your school? Were you in school in Iraq for 3 years?
Yeah, so I was in school for 3 years. To be honest, I don't really remember much of
in Iraq.
Yeah. No the school, no anything.
In Syria, you remember that?
I remember much more.
Okay.
Because I think it was, I was 9, a bit older. So yeah.
Okay, so in Syria, you started experiencing bullying?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't. So I started off at a good school, and I was friends with everyone. And then I moved to another school, and I learned this later on. I'm just speaking to the camera, pointing at them.
I thought you went there.
Nah, don't worry.
I was like, what?
This is a tip if you're a kid and you're getting bullied. I had to learn. So first day of class, I'm sitting at the back. I'm hating my life because like they took me out of the other school, which I had all my friends, all the people there, and they put me in a school that I didn't know anyone. And there was a kid behind me that kept, like, I don't know, he kept tapping my shoulders. He kept messing with me. So in class, I just like stand up and I turn her back to him and I like go and punch him in the face. And I still remember it was the funniest thing. So he just like takes it. It doesn't feel anything, and then he stands up and he's like this much taller than me. And then he goes and boom on my face, and then I just like end up crying the whole class. But we laugh at it now.
I feel bad for laughing, but
no,
you're saying it so like nonchalantly. Okay.
But look, you take again, God is the one who like heals. That's why I can talk about all these stories now.
Can I ask, were they bullying you because you were from Iraq, or
that had the part to play with it? But the bullying happened after that. So because a lot of the bullies, usually they know who to pick. It's usually going to be the ones who are softer, more. And because in that moment, I wasn't, I was crying the whole time. So I just became an easy target for people to target. Won't go into much detail, but I do remember, and actually, every single life stage where I had difficulties, God has also provided me with people that had helped me go through these difficulties. And in that school, I had met my best friend at the time. His name is Marwan. We haven't spoken in like, I think, I don't remember how many years now. But because of him, I could go like to school. Because of him, like he was younger than me, but he was like my older brother, and he would always defend me. And his family was amazing as well. Like every single day, and this is for 3 years, his mom would make me lunch. And it was the same thing. It was like a potato sandwich every single, and that was my favorite. And he would give me money as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, like because we struggled a lot financially there.
Of course.
But man, that boy was so generous and so loving.
That's mad. It's like your modern day fatty.
Yeah.
Modern day fatty.
Fatty doesn't give me that much money. No, he does. Yeah.
He gives you other things. It's
yeah.
Love.
That's it. But yeah. So I guess that was a bit about Syria, and then after 9 rejections to Australia.
Wow, 9.
Yeah. We get accepted, and we come here. So we came here when I was 13. And man, I remember first day and night arriving here. We arrived at night. It was also the Mardi Gras, so it was a special day that we arrived at.
Yeah, that would have been very...
Yeah.
From the west side.
Yeah, from the west side. Like, what is the Mardi Gras? What is...
Yeah, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
From Syria to the Mardi Gras.
Yeah, that was funny. But, so first night, and then we sleep. I wake up the next day, and I go outside, and I'm thinking, whoa, bro, there's grass everywhere. Kid you not? Like, we're living like in a house in Fairfield, which is like, it wasn't the best area to be like considered.
It was just Syria, but in Australia.
Yeah. But like, I go and like, bro, there's grass everywhere. It's so green, trees everywhere. There's birds everywhere. The reason I say this is because we lived in Syria. We lived in a Palestinian project area, which is like basically where a lot of Palestinian refugees live. So it was a very rough area. And we had like right under our apartment was basically where they would dump all the rubbish. So every single day is like, my view is like a concrete apartment and like rubbish under me. So to go from that to seeing, I guess, all the grass and all of that was incredible, man. And I still remember it. And I was like, wow, it was a beautiful.
That's so pure. Just like taking what we say is the smallest thing be such a big thing. Yeah. So cool. Like I remember even when my cousin came from Lebanon, like she had a fine life in Lebanon, like no struggles, but like when she came, she's like, man, there's so many trees. So it makes sense that you're saying that. But even the fact that like it's just the contrast, I think, of like rubbish to green grass. I don't know, it's like, I guess it's a metaphor for your life as well, which we'll get into of all of our life.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
But yeah, I don't know what to say.
Wow, that was such a Jonah thing. But
Yeah. I just realized that. I just heard it when I said it.
Wow.
But
So yeah, if you lost track, did you lose track? You know how?
no. So
Actually.
even with schools, when I started school here, it was like IEC, Intensive English Center. I was in Fairfield. Bro, that was so much fun. The teachers were the nicest I've ever seen. Bro, they actually like look at you with respect and like it sounds like I had such a but compared to like a typical Middle Eastern teacher to would say a like one here that actually cares and works, bro, it changes your whole perspective. So that was fun, and they used to take us on a lot of excursions. It was just mucking around, and thankfully, like my school life here was pretty good. Yeah, so a lot of that kind of got left behind, and kind of on this side started, to be a bit more at ease. So yeah, that was a bit, yeah.
Was there any was there any culture shock from, obviously, like I assume there was, but from when you came and maybe you saw people acting a certain way, or people responding to situations, or even complaining, and was there any part of you that was just like yeah, you guys have no idea what the world is like, or you have no idea what?
I wouldn't say I felt that when I was younger. I definitely felt that when I was older.
Okay.
Especially when you interact with a lot of different people, and it's different. Like, I'm speaking for the Iraqis. Like, we have a weird way of joking. We make fun of everything, and like, it can seem a bit offensive or just weird sometimes. But like, that's the way we've always done it. Just make fun of everything. But just with that, I don't think I had any. To be fair, though, I didn't interact with, I would say, my people when I came here. Because of those bad experiences there, I just hated all Middle Eastern people. With like, I'm just being respectful. But funny thing is, most of my friends are Middle Easterns.
Did you realize that at the time, or was that something that?
Yeah, I already knew. Like I said, I want nothing to do with anyone who's Middle Eastern.
You went to Fairfield.
Yeah, but the thing is, you say I went to Fairfield. The people I was with were like a lot of the Latino people. So that was my early. That's where like I learned a lot of Spanish, and most of, I'd say, my crew, the people I used to hang out with, were Latinos, and the other crew was like Asians, and stayed away from the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. And the thing is, both of us like barely speak any English, and we're like trying to be friends and everything. Yeah,
that's cool. It's sort of wholesome in a way. Yeah. So you were born in Iraq. You sort of struggling there because the war is happening, and then you eventually go to Syria, and you say you had like the best 4 years, but also some of the worst years.
Yeah. So they kind of evened out.
Some of the best, maybe not years, some of the best times.
Yeah.
And some of the worst times in those 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you eventually, when you're 13, you come to Australia, and you are amazed by even the smallest things with the grass, and you have good friends.
Here?
Yeah, like when you first started coming.
No, I don't have friends.
What happened to the Latinas and?
They're good friends, but like it wasn't.
Oh, it was just like entertainment friends.
Yeah. I didn't have any friends till like year 11 or 12.
Okay, so that's inside, I guess.
Yeah.
So what happens next? So what is on the path of Yusuf to make you the man that you are today?
Oh man, this is funny because like the story gets worse before it gets better. I would say. High school was fun, I would say, but I didn't really open up to anyone because I was highly mistrustful of people. Like I didn't trust a single human being. So it was hard to even make friendships and closer friendships, and even like for guys, like just to open up to a guy, that's like, that's the most impossible thing to do. But by the grace of God, I remember when I was 16 or something, I remember listening to a sermon, or like a message saying, hey, just pray for, godly people, good friends, good Christian friends. And so I pray that. And then next year, I end up meeting one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met, who would play a significant role in my life. I don't know why I said my back.
What?
Yeah. Hey, he also taught me how to train my back, so that's probably what. Yeah. So some of you might know him. His name is Iris. Man, what a guy! Love him dearly. Love you, Iris. If you're listening to this, and that was the first time I've ever had like a good, godly Christian friend, someone who I could rely on. And
what allowed you to trust Iris? Like, what was different about him, or what changed in you, or like, what was it?
I would say it was him, his character. And I don't know if you met him, but if you meet him, he had the love of God in him, and he really tried to show that. He tried his best to live for God, and he was very generous as well. Generous in the way he spoke and the way he did things, and that really had encouraged me at the time. And then during those high school years, last year of year 12, all the HSC pressures and all of that, it started getting to me as well. Like, started getting very anxious about just getting results and all these things, and like, I've been brought from that country, I better do well, otherwise I'm a huge disappointment to the whole family. Which again, those are lies that I recognize now. By the time, they felt so real.
Yeah.
And I just remember during one of the exams, I was sitting and I couldn't handle the pressure, and just like had a panic attack during that, and like my whole body was sweating so much. And after that, I just like developed a stomach condition where life was becoming a bit more agitating. Everything was becoming a bit more difficult to do. I was always anxious. Like, I never felt calm. So that was my final year of high school leading up to university. But at the same time, I would say like that time period I had where things got very difficult for me is where God
Shaped you?
Shaped me, yeah. And
how was your relationship with God during that time?
I would say earlier when I was younger, I had a stronger relationship.
What's
like
younger?
14, 15. Had a lot of faith, prayed a lot, had a lot of joy. But as I grew older, started becoming more and more bitter, I guess, towards God, because I felt like I had a lot of prayers He wasn't answering.
Yeah.
And that bitterness actually led me to a place where after when I was, I think, 19 or 20, I felt like every single bad thing that has happened to me was God's fault. He wasn't answering my prayers. He wasn't doing anything in my life. Other people was praising Him, talking about Him, and like, I don't see anything. He's not doing anything. He's not responding. Like, I don't even know if He loves me. And that continued to go on for a while, and it hit to the point where I started doubting whether God even exists or whether a God exists. And I guess one of the things that I would say bad, but also good. I'm not the type that stays away from certain thoughts. I'm open to whatever thoughts that come my way, just because I believe, hey, if this is actually the truth, then it will keep me to the end. But at the time, I started listening to a lot of videos about like atheism, a lot of people who were Christians and converted to atheism, saying that there is no God. And truthfully, with all the bitterness and anger I had towards God and the rage, I started to believe some of these things. And it came to the point where I was like so angry at God. So angry. And I was swearing at him. I was cursing at him. I was blaming him for everything. And I just wanted to spy him. And I say this now with God is so gracious. He, even then, despite all of that, he absorbed it, and he's actually showing me, oh, this is what I'm actually like now. Because I didn't know him. I didn't know his character. I always saw him as like a judgmental God sitting in his icy, just making people suffer. And to the special few, the Christians, I used to think they were highly deluded individuals, that they're just brainwashed. They brainwashed themselves. They gave, because like life is so difficult, they just created a God for themselves, just to deal with things. So I said, I'm not going to be like these guys. They're all fools. And one day I remember I said, God, I don't believe you exist anymore. And when I said that, the thing is, I felt such a deep emptiness that I can never describe. Because when I thought about that, okay, I'm saying now God doesn't exist. So what's the point of things? What's the point of my life then? Is it just, just to live, just do whatever? Just felt completely empty. Like there's no right, there is no wrong. And even I was like saying God doesn't exist, but I was angry about him. Like that was such a big contradiction. And then what about justice? Like what about suffering then? If nobody's there, if there is no God, then this world is the worst world that's ever existed. And Iris, I remember one day in uni, call him on the phone. I'm like crying and I'm saying, hey Iris, I'll stop believing in God and everything. I don't remember what he said, but he calmed me down a bit, and then we ended up meeting, and then that began a new chapter of my life where I slowly starting to approach God again. But I was highly skeptical at that point. I was a very skeptical individual. I looked at all the different religions, looked at all the different gods, history, what humans had to say, even the Bible, the authenticity, all these things, just to know if he even existed. But the skepticism I formed in those years also kind of hindered me later on, I would say. But I praise God for it. So that's a bit about that phase in my life. Yeah.
So how'd you go from, obviously I know Iris helped, but how'd you go from not sort of believing? The thing is, you still believed.
I believed, yes. Yeah. So but just to say, this is gonna sound weird to you guys, but I hated God, but I didn't hate Jesus. I cursed God, but I didn't curse Jesus. For me, and I realized this was a thing that happened in my life even a few years back as well, where for me, they hadn't come together. Because Jesus is the image of the invisible God, and nobody gets to the Father except through him. I saw Jesus as like kind, nice, gentle, but God, I don't know, it didn't have even a person in my mind. It was just like I don't know how to describe it. It was spiteful, was vengeful, was angry, was all these things, which is definitely not our God. But I guess that's to give you some input.
Yeah. So how'd you go from that to actually even starting to want to? Because that hate was probably so deep that it was probably not even a want to even try.
But that hate had its origin at actually wanting God to intervene, and it was disappointment that God hadn't done anything that it like developed. So deep down, that desire has always been there for me.
Yeah.
Like even that close intimacy and relationship with God, I've always desired it, especially from a very young age. But I never thought I would have it. Like, oh, these people are special; they can have that, not me.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was there a divine intervention that you were seeking, or was it something else that happened?
There was. So this is where God starts working, and I'm gonna go back between, but like this is the timeline of about 4 years, where certain things happen. That okay, God, I see you working in it. First thing that happened, Aris again. His sister gets baptized and he just invites me to church. And at that point, I really didn't like church, didn't like churches, didn't like Christians. I accepted it. Like I still knew God was real, but I was far away from him and I was in sin. And I remember going there and just seeing the joy on everyone's voice. I literally thought everyone was like brainwashed when I got there. Why are they so happy? Why are they smiling at me? Like, what are they trying? Are they trying to trick me? Are they trying to win me over with are they actually genuine? These were all happening in my mind. And then as I'm listening, Georgina, oh, sorry, I said her name. I don't know if I should. Goes up and says her testimony, and she's
Iris' sister.
Yeah, Iris' sister. She says her testimony with like tears, and I'm thinking, like, I'm sitting here complaining, doing all these things, and like this girl is so vulnerable, just crying, and like the amount of love she has for God honestly convicted me. Just seeing someone in tears in front of everyone, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. And then Badil goes up and he speaks, and you gotta remember, with me, I don't trust anyone. Everyone is like, hey, like you have to go through certain
Yeah.
Badil opens his mouth and he speaks, and I'm thinking, this is someone I can speak to now.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. This is someone I can be open to and just say. So finishes, I go speak with Badil, I tell him about my life, what had happened. And there I meet a few people that I would say God would use to heal a lot of the relational issues I had, and also to strengthen and encourage me. And I would say to bring me back from a very dark place I went to later on. So that's where I'm at. Remember Marco, he was on your podcast, Bashar, Fatty later on. So those were, and some of the other girls that like started to become friends with. So that's when I started. I guess God was opening up my mind to his people, like the church, Christians that actually love God and cared about him. And so, yeah.
That's interesting. That's really cool. What would you say to someone? I don't know what this question. Would you say, because it was a divine intervention for you that sort of changed things?
Yeah, I left a few things that led to me actually going to church, which, yeah. So I just mentioned, hey, I went to church, but I won't say it now. But
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
But what would you say to someone that is struggling with that, or that is struggling, maybe like, I don't know, they're going, I don't know.
Like they're struggling and saying God is not
yeah, God is not real, or like, I don't
Look,
know.
that's very hard for me to give advice on because my life and my experiences weren't the same.
Yeah, of course.
And even then, reflecting back, there were a few things I was doing wrong. And the reason God wasn't answering my prayers is because I was asking things that were not in His will. And I would say if you're in a place where you're struggling and you're waiting on God to answer you, or you're finding yourself in a place where you're falling again and again and again, and like you're feeling, God, this is so exhausting. Like, I would say cry out to Him, like really cry out to Him. Be honest with Him, because one thing I have developed is I'm very, very honest with God and with how I feel. To the point sometimes where, like, if you read some of the stuff I've written before, it sounds like borderline. But God, I guess, understands the language of human suffering. And one psalm that comes to my mind that really, I guess, opened my mind to God's heart and to suffering was Psalm 88. And if just go read that.
Do you want to read it now? Should we read it now?
It's a bit of a heavy one. I don't know if we want to read it. But sure, we can go. We can read it. Yeah.
Okay. Opa. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just turning to it. I'll just read it, and yeah, just so people can know. I think.
Yep.
Psalm 88. All right. O Lord, God of my salvation, I cry out day and night before you. Let my prayer come before you. Incline your ear to my cry. For my soul is full of troubles, and my life draws near to Sheol. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am a man who has no strength, like one set loose among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, like those whom you remember no more, for they are cut off from your hand. You have put me in the depths of the pits, in the regions dark and deep. Your wrath lies heavy upon me, and you overwhelm me with all your waves. You have caused my companions to shun me. You have made a horror to them. I am shut in so that I cannot escape. My eyes grow dim through sorrow. Every day I call upon you, O Lord. I spread out my hands to you. Do you work wonders for the dead? Do the departed rise up to praise you? Is your steadfast love declared in the grave, or your faithfulness in Abaddon? Are your wonders known in the darkness, or your righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? But I, O Lord, cry to you. In the morning my prayer comes before you. O Lord, why do you cast my soul away? Why do you hide your face from me? Afflicted and close to death from my youth up, I suffer your terrors. I am helpless. Your wrath has swept over me. Your dreadful assaults destroy me. They surround me like a flood all day long. They close in on me together. You have caused my beloved and my friend to shun me. My companions have become darkness. It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's very heavy. I read this like the other day. So,
Yeah. You know what? That's heavy, but that psalm probably had the biggest impact on my life, because I remember being in a very dark place, and I wrote something and I ended it with like, darkness is my only friend. And then I don't know how, I just go to the My Bible, switch randomly, and then I find this and I read the end. It is like the same exact thing. But God knows the language of human suffering. And even then, like, people say, oh, it ended. Darkness is my only friend. But when you see how he started it, God, I cry out to you. He didn't forsake God. You're still crying out to God. And he was waiting and he was asking questions. God, do you raise people from the dead? And that's who we have in Christ. That was before Christ as well.
Yeah.
So he's asking, and that's the beautiful thing, because when I read that and I'm saying, oh, Christ died and rose to death for me, and now I can have life. And not only life, but like life in abundance. It really started to change my perspective about a lot of things. And I would say for a lot of the things I struggled with, I found a lot of healing in the character of Christ, his story, his sufferings, his joy, his serving, all the different aspects of who God is, really healed me. Because you asked me, hey, how did you come out of it? And the truth is I didn't think I was going to come out of it. But God is the one who intervened. And I'll say a few stories of how he done it, and just to show me like who Christ was. Happy to share them now, or like if you have any questions, well,
I think share them and then maybe ask questions.
So this was, I will say a few. I have 3, but there have been a lot, and they happened, and each one of them that happened taught me a different characteristic of Christ and Jesus that strengthened me in my faith later on. But the very, very first one was, I was in a very, very dark place, and was a very, very hopeless place. And it kept going for such a long time. But one day, the most unexpected day, before things could get worse, let's just say, I just woke up and like my mind was clear. I was like, oh, what's happening? Like, I can think. I feel love. I feel all these things. And then the very first thing that came to my mind was Jesus. And after that was, I literally, during that time, it felt like as if I was born again. I don't know if like that's when, but it felt like I was in the darkness, and Jesus came and he brought me out of it. And all of a sudden, all these different scriptures started coming to my mind. All the ones about how Christ loves us. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame. It's like all his different promises started coming to my mind. And those times, man, I was so hard, but it turned into so much joy. It was so special, because God was speaking so tenderly to me. He was like so gentle, as just a loving father, and I felt that in my life. And that was the first, I would say, significant revelation that God just showed, because that really, for the first time in my life, I understood grace. I understood because at that point in my life, I was sowing in my flesh and I was reaping corruption. And I really felt, okay, God, so this is where you saved me from. So this is death, and now you've given me life. And I was in darkness, now I'm in your kingdom, I'm in your light. And that was so special. Like, I praise God for that time. But yeah, that was one experience. And I would say another experience was at church. It was during Easter, and it was after this had happened, but I was still struggling a lot. And I remember I didn't really want to come to church. I just felt completely filthy, exposed, shamed. Was like I was running away from God even then. But I came to church, and I remember on the way to church, I felt like there was a force stopping me from going. So with like every step, felt like there was just something stopping me from going. I push through. I go in, and it was such a weird day that day. I go in and I look at the people, and they look so evil. They literally looked demonic, if I can say that. Like, I was looking at the people in the worship. Right. Sorry, guys, if any of you hearing this. You're very beautiful. You have very beautiful faces. But it looked like as if they had horns. I don't know. It was such a weird thing. I don't know if I was hallucinating. I don't know what was happening. But that was the anguish I was feeling. So I just couldn't take it. I went out, and thankfully that's where Fatty would come in for the first time, I guess. God would use him in my life. And like I just had a panic attack right in front of him. And man, that I love you, Fatty. The way he spoke to me, the way he calmed me was so special. Like that was incredible. Like so I'm calmer now. Service finishes, I ask people to pray for me. And then I go stand in the grass. And like I'm struggling. God, I'm struggling with you. I'm struggling with love. I feel filthy. I feel unloved. And then bro, out of nowhere, just this kid comes and hugs me.
So some random kid.
Just random kid, bro. Random kid out of nowhere comes hug me. And for people that don't know like why that is significant for me, I feel like I lost my innocence pretty on in my life, so a part of it was taken away. And God, because this is gonna sound a bit rough, but sometimes you feel like, oh, if they knew me, if they knew my thoughts, like who would love me? Like I'm so evil. But what does God do? He just comes out. He comes for the sick and the needy, and he just comes and gives you the biggest hug. And for that particular, it just came from like a kid. So that was one. Fast forward some time, very similar experience. And this time I was with Paddy, and we laugh about it now, but I was in a place where I was very hardened again. So I was still like going through my ups and downs. Like I would be with God for just a bit, and then down for a very long time, and then back with God. And at that point I wanted kind of to leave church again, and I was hardened, and like, and poor Bashar, I'm sorry, bro. I love you dearly, but he's someone who really tried to reach me. But I felt like he was disappointed because he couldn't get to me at so many different times. But so just to say, if you have someone in your life that is not responsive, or I would say keep persisting, and with wisdom, of course. But I appreciated what he had done after the fact.
Right. Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up. And for me, what he did then made me love him and respect him much more when I was brought back to Christ again. So yeah, I was going, I don't know what was happening. Fatty tells you about that time. We came, we're going, we're meeting. I know like Fatty wants to bring me back, like, hey, to church, to people. And I'm thinking, you're not going to convince me. You're not going to get through to me. You don't know how stubborn I am. So we're there, we're sitting. A man is talking with me. I'm like saying the most absurd things, most ridiculous things. And to be honest, he starts to get discouraged because he's not getting anywhere. He can't get through. And I'm resisting as much as I can. And out of nowhere, we're just sitting in a cafe, and like there's just a place where like you just see outside, and this little like random young girl, like about 5 or 6 years old, just comes up to me, runs to the window, just like smiles at me and like just waves. Right, literally, I started crying right there. Yeah, yeah. Like even Fatty was surprised because what he doesn't know is what I was feeling and what that meant to me. Just to have someone so like beautiful and so innocent just come and just smile and wave at you. Like that was for me, like I know God, that was you. That was your grace. Just hey, I understand you're grieving. I understand you're going through things. Come back to me. Yeah.
Do you have more stories? Because I have something to say for each story, but I'll let you finish all of them.
Yeah, well, I guess I gotta finish the second part because of the story where we go and I'm chilling with Fatty in the car and we're just talking, and now I'm more open. And then I just remember Jesus. And that was the weirdest realization. Like, I forgot Jesus. I was again struggling with God, but Jesus was out of the picture. And then once I remembered him, I just like started becoming so just, I wasn't hardened anymore. It was so much softer. And that's where I learned, hey, there's something wrong here. Like I don't know who your God is, but you're definitely missing the point whenever you're struggling. Cause like, so that's when that time, like, I think that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, to understand God, I started looking at Jesus and praying to Jesus and by Jesus and all these things. And that started to shape my perception of who God is. But yeah, I guess those are some of the stories where God would use. And again, there's so many different ones where.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because you said before, you hated God, but you still love Jesus. Yeah. Was that love for Jesus, or was that just like a respect sort of?
No, deep down, I loved him.
Love him.
Yeah.
It's interesting because he's from your stories.
Yeah.
I think it was the first one and the last one you mentioned Jesus.
Yeah.
Specifically the first one where if you look at a man that you love, and you really love them, but what happened in your life? So what happened with Jesus? Remind me of the first story again. So what happened? Like just real quick.
Very dark place. Wake up feeling with no burdens, and I just remember Jesus and his love.
Yeah. So this is a cool thing. You hated God, you love Jesus.
Yeah.
But what happened in that scenario was that Jesus used his divine power to actually show you, like, look, I am God.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's a crazy thing because, like I said again, you hated God, you love Jesus. That's a contradiction in itself. But Jesus was like, look, you're just misunderstanding right now.
Yeah.
What your perception of God is wrong. The thing that you think is God, you hate. But what you actually love is God. And it's crazy how Jesus like showed you, firstly, you do love him. Secondly, that he is God. So you actually love God.
Yeah.
And just that's pretty cool. The second story was with, I think the second and fourth story, it's insane because you mentioned a tiny bit about your innocence, but God used the most innocent to they didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
They just like waved at you or just hugged you, whatever it is. And like God knew exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
Innocent.
That was crazy.
Yeah. And I know we haven't, I know it might seem like a lot, but we've actually skimmed over your life.
Yeah.
And though maybe we seem a bit lighthearted and whatnot, but it's because, like, firstly, we know that Yusuf is saved from this stuff. But yeah, the fact that he used like what you thought you were missing, he sort of showed you, like, look, you are still that
Yeah.
to me. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just have the image of Christ, like accepting the children to be like, let them come, have actually childlike faith.
Mm.
I think that's his way of showing you. It's just crazy. Like I don't know, it's wild because he showed you that with all these thoughts and all these things that were fed to you and the things that have happened to you that cause this sort of split and the hardening of the heart. It's like he used literally a child to soften your heart and to show you like, okay, Christ loved these children. These children love Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they went to him. And you even said before, when you were young, you loved Christ more.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, look, I know you feel like your innocence is stripped, but your innocence is with me.
Mm.
And I think that's why. I forgot what the third story was.
Yeah. There wasn't a third story.
Or was it just 3 stories?
Yeah. It was just 3. I can't count. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's
No, but I just wanna like praise God because I know I speak and some things may seem heavy, but He's healed so much. He's healed parts of me that I thought would never be reached, and He's continuing to do so, and He's doing it by, I guess, just His loving kindness and patience. Like I've been reading the book of Isaiah at the moment, and such a powerful book. And when like Israel has done so many bad things, they've run away from God again and again and again, and then He just goes like to them and, hey, I'm gonna bring you out to the wilderness. Like I'll lure you, like I'll speak tenderly to you, I'll betroth you to me, like between Christ and the church and righteousness and love. And to those who are not my people, now you're my people. And you'll call me, instead of calling me master, you'll call me husband. So just the intimacy Christ offers us, like speaking so tenderly. Man, such powerful. And even when He later on, like he speaks, how can I give you up? Like my insides like churn within me. And I always focused on God's judgment, always. And I think that was because I know people can go different extremes, heavy grace, heavy focus, and justice, heavy focus. And I was deep in that, like, God, punish me. God, do just, but He didn't give me that. He actually changed my heart in the best way He could have ever changed my heart, which was His continuous pursuit of me. And I struggled to love, and I struggled to accept love for the longest time. Like I couldn't accept it. God, I would say, like, I can't accept your love, which was pride as well. But seeing His character and seeing what He went through, even on the cross, seeing the shame He endured, seeing all of that for the joy that was set before Him, so that we can have life, that we can have eternal life, that we can, be restored, renewed. Like, God, okay, instead of rejecting you, now I'll just open up my arms and say thank you. Thank you for loving me. I struggle to love. Please help me to love. And ever since I've done that, it's like, if I were to go back and say, God, you don't love me, or God, I can't accept your love for me, or I can't accept your forgiveness, I can't do that anymore. Because, like, there is nothing more that God desires for us than to go back to Him. And once you actually experience and taste His goodness, once you live a life that's Spirit-filled, that you're walking in obedience to Him, you think what you have right now is sustaining you, or the trash that we're consuming. It's nothing compared to what Christ offers. And people used to say that to me, and like I'm thinking, what are they talking about? People used to talk about grace. What are they talking about? Like, you guys are like, yeah, but to go from that and experience that was so, it transformed my heart. And I had a heart of stone, and God gave me a new heart of flesh.
Yeah. Just to see, like, I've only known you for 2 years now, but sort of hear what you come from and what you have come from, and actually see it as well. Like, it's mind blowing. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I've actually sort of, like, obviously I knew this, but the biggest thing that I've sort of noticed from this is that, this is going to sound dumb because obviously I know it, but Jesus is God. And I was actually speaking to someone yesterday of like how Jesus spoke to people, and the people that just got it wrong, as in like people that didn't know, the way that Jesus sort of spoke to them was actually so kind-hearted. So like, if you look at it, like the Mary Magdalene, the way he approached her was just like, okay, everyone's shunning you, I'm actually going to take you in and show you love. For the people that needed to get rebuked, he put his foot down. He showed the heavy hand. And I think God is so similar. When you were talking about Hosea, I'm like, man, like, it's the same thing. And Jesus on the cross, what did he say? He said, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing, just to paraphrase.
Yeah.
And in your life, you've seen, it's still baffling to me, just seeing like Jesus be God in your life, and without you realizing, without you actually knowing it, then one day it comes full circle. And I remember what I was going to say for one of the stories, and it ties in because it comes full circle. Because if you hear in Mark's podcast, pretty much the exact same thing that happened to you, you are that person for Mark. So it was a different story, but for you were in church, something happened, you sort of had a panic attack, you left the building, and then Fadi came, and he was the perfect person to be there for you. And then you look, I don't know how long ago, but you look maybe 3 years later or whatever, 4 years later, and you are that person for someone, and it comes full circle. And it's just, for me, whenever you're going through something where I think we have similar mindset, maybe not mindsets, but we have similar, like, we were sort of raised up with the justice mindset of like I deserve all the punishment. Like, grace wasn't a thing. But then as we sort of go into Graceway, funnily enough, the name Graceway showed me like, grace, okay, you need some grace. And I think you have been a massive part in that. So thanks for that, of showing yourself grace, because you won't feel the forgiveness or the grace until you show it yourself. Yeah, and it's just, man, it's crazy. It's crazy to see, like, yeah, just it all comes full circle. And if anyone is watching and struggling with that, just know that you can come back from wherever you are. I love what he said in Psalm 88, says it, but you have to cry out to God. Sometimes he will have that divine intervention of you actually like where you're just not doing anything and he does everything. But then there's also those moments where, like, you actually need to do something. And that's what David did. It's so, man. I was looking at when you started speaking about Psalm 88. I was looking at the contrast. This is dumb, but it was the contrast. Wow, the contrast between your life and David's life. And if you look at that, I look at David as someone that was just so like switched on, and like he. Something that's been on my heart recently is that David was anointed as king before he did anything, and because his heart was set right with God, and like that's why God chose him. With you, it was always like you were struggling, and somehow you and David sort of came to the same perspective. And what's baffling is that no matter where you are, so David was like, he was anointed as king. That's the first time he's mentioned in the Bible. For you, I mean, you're not anointed as king. Sorry to say, but both of you went through the same thing, and both of you like came to the same conclusion. You need to cry out to God. And I mean, you look at David's life, and like he was in shame for a year and a half. I'm sure we've experienced shame for maybe not that long, maybe longer. I don't know. But we've all experienced shame. And I was thinking about this as well, that you were in Iraq. You started in Iraq. You went to Syria. You came to Australia. I don't know why I'm waffling like this, but this is, I don't know. It's been mind-blowing. I was born here, had a Western life, simple, privileged, like whatever it is. But it's led to both of us, no matter what our journeys are, it's led to both of us being right here, doing this exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, to say there is no God, it's baffling to me. It's just, man, just thinking about it, like, I feel like I'm just waffling at this stage.
No, you're not, yeah.
Like, I hope I'm translating what I'm feeling, because it's living a life without God, as you've clearly like said, it's different. And sometimes we do have these down moments, and I think both of us probably are in a high, and I think most of the boys are in a high, but I firmly believe that I'm sure things will happen, like we will suffer with some stuff, but I don't think anything's going to change. I'm sure we'll have our days and whatnot, but like, glory awaits.
Yeah.
We're getting, I don't know. I don't want this, firstly, to be a discouragement to anyone. Because actually, I'll ask you this question. But in that time that you were struggling, or you were, whatever it is, maybe the time that you believe there was no God, or whatever it is, how are you feeling looking at other people that like loved God? Was it a state of delusion? Was it a state of jealousy? Or like,
gonna be honest, I hated them. Just hated. I hated they were happy. Like, I was jealous as well. I didn't understand. Like, it was, but what I realized as well is I was projecting what I was feeling towards myself outwardly, towards others. So that was what was happening. But yeah, I would say highly delusional, or maybe God loves them, but God doesn't love me. I would say those were the lies I was hearing and listening to when I was going through these certain times. And another one, which is a very destructive, I would say, line of thinking, is like, oh, you don't understand what I'm going through. Because once you say that, like, you've already put a dividing wall between you and someone else. And truthfully, there are some things that others may not understand that you're going through, but there is one person who does, and that's Jesus Christ. He's, anything you've gone through, he can understand.
Yeah.
And more than that, he's not only has he gone through so much, he has also taken upon himself our sins. So, and that's where, like, even with shame, I struggled a lot with shame. Like shameful memories, shameful stuff, like, and then just realizing that Jesus experienced shame. Like, Jesus, people sinned against him on the cross. It was like, man, and if you go read about how they crucify people, terrible, terrible things. So just to see that he went through that, And now relationally, you have someone you can relate to, like in your sufferings. Like he was beaten, he was abused, he was whatever you can imagine happened to him. And that was God. Like that wasn't, he was the most innocent human that ever existed. Nobody can say the most sinless human as well. Like he's sinless. I don't know why there's levels to most. But I don't know. I always look back at the cross and what Christ had to endure there, and you can't just stay on the cross because he died, but he also rose, and that's where the real power comes from, the power of the resurrection. Because in it, he beat death, and so you can also, share in that promise. Well, man, this life is tough, but we just have to keep persevering. Keep running the race, keep enduring, find rest in him. And there is this proverb, like a righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets up 8 times. If you're falling, get back up. You fall, get back up. You fall, get back up. You fall, get back up. You keep doing that till the day you meet him. And that's where glory awaits. Like everything you've gone through is not for nothing. It's all like for that eternal weight of glory. And that's the hope we have. Like every single aspect of your life is covered by Jesus, by his love. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Hey, do you want to hear my side of Mark's story?
Yes, actually, good.
It's not as people expect, but I learned a great lesson that day. So Mark mentioned he was struggling a bit with Fridays, and I was going through something similar as well. And on that particular day, like I'm thinking, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to go there. What's the point? I'm not sure, like can't guarantee it, but I think I also like wasn't sin that day. So I didn't have the right attitude nor mindset. But somehow I felt compelled to go. And I said, okay, I don't know why, I'm just gonna go. I go there, I'm sitting in, and then Mark comes in, say hi to him, and I'm looking at him and he's like deathly pale. Like it looks like he doesn't have any life in him. And I'm thinking, oh, did something happen? Speak with him, he doesn't sound like his usual self. So I'm thinking, okay, something must have happened. So he goes and leaves, and I'm thinking in my mind, oh God, I hope he's not like gonna leave the church. Because he said like, because I remember certain moments in my work where I also left. So I'm thinking, God, please, like, don't let him leave. Like, so he goes outside, and I say, okay, I'm gonna pretend like I'm gonna go to the toilet just to suss it out. I go out and then I see him sitting, and I'm just thinking, God, I'm sorry, forgive me for all my sins. I see my brother is struggling right now. I don't know how to encourage him or be there for him, but please give me the wisdom. And at that time, I also wanted to get closer to Mark, but I felt like I couldn't really reach him like other people could, like Fadi or Bashar, just because I was a bit more reserved in the way. And just walking in and like going and then seeing him, and he was emotional, like he was going through a lot of stuff. And I don't know where I learned this, but like when you have someone grieving, some of the best things you can do is just sit with them in silence. Just let them process their emotions. So I go there, I just sit with him. And then we just, after a while, we talk about, random things. I don't know why he's happening. He's not telling me what's happening. And then I just ask him if I can pray for him. And that was so crazy. Because like, I'm thinking, God, this man hasn't given me any single thing about what he's going through right now. I don't even know what he went through. Please, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to pray. Give me the words, give me the strength. And then I start praying. And as I'm praying, I'm getting like an image of a particular thing. I won't go into detail, but I just like start praying, and I start praying about that. And then finish praying, and then Mark like just turns to me, bro, how would you know? I didn't know. And that was, bro, we're both like sitting there completely shocked, like, and bro, it was so weird. And I don't know, I felt like God had also helped me pray for him, because I've always wanted to pray for him like in person and be there for him, so he did that. But after that, it really changed my perspective on Fridays, on church, on serving in general, because I was thinking like, if I didn't listen to God and I didn't go, who would have been there for Mark that day? Not to say that God can't use other people,
Yeah.
but so that's the way I see them now. Like, and I think for a big part of my journey, even with Christianity, I was focused a lot on taking and not giving. But after that, I feel like God changed something in my heart where, okay, now it's time for you to give back. It's time for you to serve others. It's time for you to love others. So, and ever since that shift in mindset, it's been a blessing, to be honest. Just going and not going, hey, yes, you're also receiving, but like, how can I serve others? How can I love others? And now that I can love, it's very different, because like, you don't do things out of like an obligation. You do it out of the abundance, because you feel so loved by God that it just overflows to the people. So yeah, that was
Yeah, I think it proves that Jesus is right, because he says more blessed to give than is to
more
receive.
blessed to give than receive. Yeah,
yeah. It shows like that statement alone. It doesn't make sense. Like, what do you mean that doesn't make sense? But you felt it. Like, it makes sense. Once you feel it, it makes sense. Yeah. Oh man. You know what's funny, when Mark told me when Mark said that story, I was like, I know Yusuf, that it wasn't just a coincidence. Like, I know Yusuf was out there for a reason. Maybe it was like his own stuff. Maybe he saw Mark. I had all these thoughts. Yeah. Honestly.
So, hopefully that completes the picture. But like, God used this story like to give him his own, and he used it to heal something else in me. Like, that's
maybe that's why you're the perfect person.
Yeah.
For that scenario. You're not the perfect person, but you're.
Thank you, Jonah.
You're close.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I think we are good. Is there anything else that you would want to touch on, talk about?
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Surprisingly, it's actually, like, I say, a shorter episode. It's still pretty long, like an hour and 30 minutes, but like
that's fine.
Something, a recurring theme that's been in like this podcast and last podcast is just the community that you have.
Yeah.
I said it at the end of last podcast, but actually something I realized after watching, I think I may have said this to you, but if you look at Mark's life, like, there's five of us that are, to Mark, there are four of us that are pretty close to him. There's Yusuf, myself, Fadi, and Bashar. Fadi and Bashar, bro, they're just the goats.
They're close with everyone. They're just like,
I know, far out. So there's those four. And as you go through the podcast, he starts talking about, I think he starts off with Fadi and how, like, Fadi gave him a different perspective on this. Yeah. And he's like, bro, you're not doing enough. What am I doing then? And then that sort of initiates him to do, like, start again. And then you go to Bashar and it's like, again, it's like loving rebuke. All right, done. Yusuf in that scenario needed to be Yusuf. It couldn't be anyone else. And then me just praying.
That's the best thing you could do for all of us, to be honest.
Yeah. Like, and I realized afterwards, I was like, man, I think I said it to you boys. I was like, God used just four guys just trying in Mark's life, who probably needed those exact four boys to be trying. He used those four boys exactly how they needed to be used. It's nothing on us. Nothing.
No.
Like, all I did was talk to God. Like, I mean, that's the most I could do, really. But also, like, nothing I could do. I was just giving it to God. With you, you literally said, I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to give it to God and God can do the rest. I'm sure when Bashar spoke to Mark, I'm going to give it to God, I'm going to do the rest. Fatty, I'm sure. Like, and with your life, you have spoken about so many people that have been impactful, but it's always been God.
Yeah.
With Iris, with Fadi, Bashar, it's always been God at the forefront. And actually, just even those children, like, who are those children? I don't even know if you know who they are now.
I've got no idea, to be honest.
That's crazy.
I don't even remember what they look like.
Yeah, I think that is just like God used those children. I mean, God's using children in us. Like, we're still children. What do we know? Like, I don't know. It's crazy. Praise God, honestly.
Praise God.
And maybe Yusuf can give a bit more advice on if you are struggling with sort of sense of worth and purpose, or even just knowing God, but cry out is what I'd say, or what Yusuf would say, and what the Bible says. But also try and find people that actually care for you and love you, not people that are there just to make them feel better. And I'm sure you'll find that.
Pray for that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think something I learned, because I kept seeing people in my life that tried to come into my life, and I kept resisting. And you may be in a similar place where someone is trying to be there for you, someone is trying to be a good friend, but just give it a try. Like, give it a try. Open up a bit about yourself. Do it in wisdom, of course. But you really need to have these experiences. Because like I say, hey, with Fadi, with that, but I didn't have that relationship with them all the time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It took experiences. It took me actually taking a risk. And I know we can get into a place where I can't take a risk on anyone. But see what they're trying to do in your life. See how they're loving you. See how they're continually running after you. And just let them in. Because if you're struggling with, seeing and understanding God, it's easier to speak with a human. But of course, He's the one who's going to be working. And again, there is such a power in relationships. And that's why we're all called to be one body. Each one, relying on each other. Each one strengthening each other. Each one, grieving with each other. So you need to rely on your other members, your other body parts when you're weak. And man, relationally, there's so much power. Like, we get hurt in relationships, but God heals us in relationships as well. Yeah,
I love it. I think we are good. Is there any other things, any last things you want to say?
No, thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for coming on. I don't know. I'll say this, I might edit it out, but it was literally probably when I first started the podcast. I was like, "Oh, Yusuf, would you want to come on?" Yeah. He actually sat in the
last episode. Yeah,
the last episode.
The lost.
Oh yeah, the last episode with Fadi, like the one that wasn't recording. And I remember that time period. And I was like, Yusuf would never hop on the podcast. Yeah. And just to see, like I said, it's been probably a year now. Yeah. We're in March, right? I think I started when did I start? March, I think. It's literally been a year. Just in that year, just like I actually remember saying something to you. I remember saying, I'm excited for the day that you, I don't know if I said confidence, or where you feel that you are sort of saved from all of this. And one day you'll be able to speak out on it. And yeah, it's crazy. And it's going to keep happening. And then, God's got big plans, my friend.
For everyone.
True. But for you especially. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, if you have any anything that you would want to ask me or ask Yusuf or whatever it is, please don't be afraid to ask us. Just put in, if you don't actually personally know us, put in the comments, DM me, whatever it is. Just let us know, and we'll try and Yeah, I'll even try and get you in contact with Yusuf if
if you ever want to ask me any questions.
All the girls are gonna start DMing me like, I need Yusuf's number or something. All right. So now I'm just waffling. All right. Thank you all for listening or watching. Thank you, Yusuf.
Thank you, Jonah.
And yeah, I'll see you next time. And peace.
See ya.